Have you ever wondered if you've lived before or will live again? Are you curious about what happens to your soul after you die? Or maybe you've met someone you're sure you've known before. Or maybe you're just wondering if you have talents, skills, and experiences from a prior life that could help you now. Hi, I'm Brownell Landrum, author of the upcoming We Meet Again trilogy, and I'd like to welcome you to the Life is a Trip podcast. The following story, Have You Ever Met a Zombie Robot?, was written by Brianna Lafferty. Bri has always been sensitive to the things that we can't fully explain. The energies, the synchronicities, the strange coincidences that don't quite add up on paper, but carry deep meaning in our souls. But it wasn't until her own experience as a zombie robot that these experiences changed life for her.
Have you ever met a zombie robot? The title itself might sound straight out of a science fiction novel, something fantastical or even laughable at first glance. But bear with me, because what you're about to hear might just shift your perspective. Let's break it down. Have you ever crossed paths with a zombie? I know. We think of zombies as these rotting, mindless beings crawling out of graves. But what if the definition of zombie wasn't as far-fetched as Hollywood would have us believe? According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a zombie is simply a dead person brought back to life. That's it. No gory details, no need for flesh-eating tendencies. Simply someone who technically died and came back. Now here's where things get interesting. Did you know that about 10% of the world's population has had a near-death experience? Also known as an NDE, that's 800 million people who have teetered on the brink of death, only to return, often with a fresh perspective, sometimes even with life-altering epiphanies. They've been to that mysterious place between life and death, and made their way back. So based on that definition, could these people be considered zombies? What do you think about it? They've essentially experienced a version of death, crossed over, and returned to tell the tale. I know I'm getting philosophical here, but stay with me. I'm going to flip to the other side. Robots. The mere mention of robots conjures up images of sleek, metallic beings programmed to assist us in the world of tomorrow. Or maybe your mind jumps to the terrifying androids from dystopian movies who seem a little too human for comfort. But what if I told you that the line between humans and robots isn't as clear-cut as we once thought? According to robotsguide.com, a robot is an autonomous machine capable of sensing its environment, carrying out computations to make decisions, and performing actions in the real world. Here's the real kicker. The latest advancements in medical technology have blurred the lines between human and machine more than ever before. Take deep brain stimulators, for example. These tiny, high-tech implants are in many ways robots in disguise. They can sense their environment by detecting brainwaves, process that data, and make adjustments accordingly, sending precise electrical signals to the parts of the brain to restore normal function. Sounds pretty futuristic, right? Well, something that might surprise you. Less than 1% of the world's population has these incredible devices implanted. That's an extraordinarily small number, making anyone with a deep stimulator quite rare. The chances of you encountering one of these cyber-enhanced individuals are minuscule. In fact, you're probably more likely to stumble across someone who's had a near-death experience than someone who's got a robotic tech buzzing in their brain. But what are the chances you'd meet someone who's had both? Well, that's where my story comes in. Let's take a step back for a moment. In 2017, I had a near-death experience. I was dealing with a rare, chronic neurological condition, one that had haunted me for years. My body was failing, my energy depleted, and everything around me was slipping away. I was close to death, and for a brief moment, I crossed that line. There was a stillness, a sense of peace, and a strange sense of clarity. But then, against the odds, I came back. It's difficult to explain what that experience did to me on a deeper spiritual level, but one thing was certain. I was no longer the same person. After surviving that dance with death, I became one of those 800 million people who returned with a story to tell. And, as you could say, in a very loose sense, I became that definition of a zombie. Life had given me a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. But the plot thickened. A few years later, in 2022, my neurological condition worsened, and traditional treatments were no longer enough. That's when I was introduced to the idea of deep brain stimulation, a last resort option that sounded more like something out of a sci-fi novel than a real solution. Surgery was intense. As I lied awake, electrodes were carefully implanted into specific regions of my brain, connected to a small device that would essentially regulate the electrical impulses that had gone haywire inside my head. It was scary, thrilling, and surreal all at once. But when I woke from surgery, something strange happened. I didn't just feel like a person who survived a brush with death. I felt augmented. That's right. By medical definition, I was now part human, part machine. My deep brain stimulator could sense the electrical activity inside my brain, carry out computations to make decisions about how much stimulation was needed, and then send the appropriate signals to restore normal function. I had become, in essence, a robot. So here I am today, a zombie robot, walking among you. And here's the truly wild part. The odds of meeting someone who has had a near-death experience and that has a deep brain stimulator are so astronomically low that it feels like a cosmic joke. And yet, if you're hearing this, we've already crossed paths. In a way, you've defied the odds just by listening to the story. It's strange to think about how medical science has brought us to this point, where the line between life, death, and technology isn't as clear as we once thought. People like me are walking proof that the definitions we cling to are changing. Zombies don't have to be the terrifying figures we see in movies, and robots aren't confined to futuristic labs. Some of us are living, breathing hybrids of both. People who have come back from the brink of death, aided by technology that feels almost otherworldly. And as I sit here, sharing my story, I can't help but think about how much things have changed for me since that fateful day in 2017. I didn't just survive a near-death experience. I was given a second chance to live. And years later, another chance to live with some sense of normalcy, thanks to a tiny robot pulsing away inside my head. And while the title of Zombie Robot might seem a little outlandish, it's a badge I wear with pride. I want my story to be a reflection of that understanding, a reminder that life is so much more mystical, more connected, and even more humorous than we might think. So with that, I hope you enjoy this tale of the unusual, a journey that shows how even in the most unexpected circumstances, we can find both wonder and lightheartedness. Because, in the end, isn't life all about defying the odds, overcoming the impossible, and embracing the strange, wonderful journey we're in? So, next time you're out in the world, take a moment to wonder, could the person next to you be a zombie or a robot? Or if you're real lucky, both. And if fate ever brings us together in person, you can cross meet a zombie robot off your bucket list. Because, well, here I am.
We hope you enjoyed Bri's story. Have you ever met a zombie robot? To reach Bri, you can find her at BRI0NICLLC.com. Thank you again for listening. Hi, this is Brownell. For more of these transcendental tales, please join the Life is a Trip group on Facebook and check out my amusing and enlightening story entitled The End, which you can find on my website, brownelllandrum.com. That's BROWNELLLANDRUM.com. And please look for my upcoming novel trilogy entitled We Meet Again. It's a story about a famous couple reincarnated today to help solve a centuries-old mystery that will change the world.